James Toney's story begins in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He first stepped into a boxing gym at just 11 years old. But back then, it was nothing serious. Life had other plans. Young James found himself pulled into the streets. Fights, hustling, even selling crack cocaine. That was his world as a teenager. Yet, Toney wasn't just a fighter on the streets. He was a star athlete in football. He played so well that Western Michigan wanted him as a quarterback, while the University of Michigan wanted him as a defensive back. But Toney had a problem. He hated being told what to do. He later admitted, "I wasn't a team player. I wasn't good at taking orders. So I went into boxing." That decision changed everything. But it wasn't easy. To even start, Toney had to shed serious weight, dropping from 205 pounds to reach fighting shape. Along the way, he even clashed with future NFL legend Deion Sanders during a Michigan training camp. From there, the path was set. Boxing became his escape, his purpose, and eventually, his empire. James Toney's amateur run was short, but powerful. He stacked up 33 wins, with 32 of them coming by knockout. Only 2 losses stood against his name. That was enough to show the world what was coming. On October 26, 1988, Toney turned pro. His debut ended in the second round. From that night, Lights Out was born. The nickname itself came from his trainer Gregory Owens, or maybe from Owens' son. Either way, it fit perfectly. Gregory Owens had scouted Toney as a teenager and shaped his early years in the ring. But the road wasn't smooth. In just his 7th fight, tragedy hit. Toney's manager, Johnny A. Smith, was murdered. The loss could have broken him. Instead, it pushed him further. Jackie Collins stepped in as his manager, guiding him through the rough waters. Soon, Toney's team gained another key piece, Bill Miller, a Detroit trainer who had once laced up the gloves himself. Miller had spent time at Kronk Gym, working alongside Emmanuel Stewart. With him, Toney learned the old-school way of fighting, a style that was slick, patient, and built to last. It became his trademark. The foundation was set. The streets were behind him. Now, James Toney was ready to carve out a legend. In May of 1991, James Toney shocked the boxing world. He stepped into the ring against Michael Nunn for the IBF and lineal middleweight titles. The odds, 20-1 against him. Every judge had Toney behind, but in the 11th round, he found the opening. A left hook crashed against Nunn's jaw, sending him to the canvas. Moments later, the referee waved it off. Toney, the underdog, was now champion of the world. That one made him Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year. From there, Toney kept busy. He defended his belt often, sometimes in style, sometimes in controversy. His split decision win over Dave Tiberi was so disputed that it led a U.S. senator to demand an investigation into boxing's integrity. He fought Reggie Johnson, escaped with a split decision. He battled the great Mike McCallum twice, once to a draw, and once to a razor-thin majority decision. Those wars closed the book on Toney's middleweight run. But he wasn't done climbing. On February 13, 1993, he went after Ron Barkley for the IBF super middleweight title. The fight wasn't even close. Toney's skill, patience, and toughness left Barkley battered, his eyes swollen shut. By the 9th round, Barkley's corner stopped it. James Toney was now a 2-division champion. That year, Toney fought 5 more times, defending his new crown against anyone willing to step forward. He outclassed Toney, the punching postman Thornton. He knocked out the undefeated Tim Littles in the 4th round, despite fighting through a nasty cut that nearly ended the bout early. And when he faced former light heavyweight champ Prince Charles Williams, Toney fought through a swollen shut eye, even losing a point for hitting after the bell. But in the final round, with seconds slipping away, he unleashed a knockout that sealed the night. That victory cleared the path for the fight fans were waiting for. James Toney versus the unbeaten Olympic silver medalist, Roy Jones Jr. When James Toney met Roy Jones Jr., the boxing world expected fireworks. What they didn't expect was domination. Jones put on a masterclass. He even dropped Toney for the first time in his career, a flash knockdown in the 3rd round. Using his trademark feints, Jones tricked Toney into mocking him, then exploded with a leaping left hook that sent him down. By the end, it wasn't close. Jones walked away with a wide decision. Toney walked away with his first loss. Later, he blamed the weight cut for his sluggish performance. Whatever the reason, his unbeaten record was gone, and his reign at that weight was finished. Toney moved up to light heavyweight, but the road didn't get easier. In February 1995, Montel Griffin handed him another defeat. Toney regrouped, fought across light heavyweight, cruiserweight, even tested heavyweight. But when he got his rematch with Griffin in December 1996, the result was nearly the same, another close decision loss. He bounced back against an old rival, Mike McCallum, beating him in February 1997. But just when it seemed he was regaining momentum, Toney stumbled again, losing to journeyman Drake Thodsey. It was a rough stretch. The man once seen as untouchable was suddenly struggling to find consistency. But if there was one thing about James Toney, it was that he never stayed down for long. His story was far from finished. After years of ups and downs, James Toney disappeared from the spotlight for a while. But in 1999, he came back with fire in his eyes. This time, he looked like a man on a mission. One by one, he took down former champions and tough contenders: Adolfo Washington, Steve Little, Ramon Garbi, Saul Montana, Sione A. Cipolli, Courtney Butler, Michael Rush. Each one reminded fans that lights out was still dangerous. By 2002, the climb led him to Jason Robinson in an IBF cruiserweight eliminator. Toney won, setting the stage for a showdown with the unbeaten champion, Vasily Jirov. After a delay, they finally met on April 26, 2003. What followed was a war. Jirov came forward relentlessly, throwing punches in waves. Toney, calm and clever, slipped, countered, and answered with sharp combinations. Round after round, the fight stayed razor close. Then came the 12th. With everything on the line, Toney dropped Jirov with a brutal body shot and a flurry upstairs. The champion got back up, but the damage was done. When the final bell rang, the judges gave it to Toney. James Toney was now a 3-division world champion. The performance earned him Fighter of the Year, Comeback of the Year, and the bout itself was crowned Fight of the Year. And just like that, he wasn't done climbing. Toney moved straight to heavyweight, the land of giants, where he would battle for the next 7 years. For years, James Toney swore he would one day become heavyweight champion. People laughed. He was a middleweight, too small for the land of giants. But in October 2003, he finally made the leap. His first test? None other than Evander Holyfield. The opening round looked shaky, but then Toney went to work. He ripped Holyfield's body with punishing shots, broke him down, and by the 9th round, the legend had nothing left. Toney scored a stoppage and made his statement to the world. After the fight, he bragged in classic Toney fashion, "I'm indestructible. I got milk, baby. Don't ask me no badass questions." From there, Toney kept moving. He beat Rydell Booker, even with an injured arm. Then, in April 2005, he outclassed John Ruiz to win the WBA heavyweight crown, seemingly completing his dream. But the celebration didn't last. A failed drug test wiped the victory away, ruling the fight a no contest. Toney claimed it was for medication for his injured arm, but the belt was gone. Still, Toney pressed forward. He beat Dominic Gwynn, then earned a shot at the WBC heavyweight title against Hazem Rahman. 12 grueling rounds later, the fight was scored a majority draw. The belt slipped from his grasp. Next came 2 wars with a hard-hitting Samuel Peter. Both ended in defeat, first by split decision, then by unanimous. Toney was now fighting uphill in a division stacked with giants. Even so, he refused to fade quietly. He edged Friso Quendo in a controversial split decision in 2008, stopped Matthew Greer in 2009, and in 2011, at a career-high 257 pounds, he beat Damon Reed with a clean sweep on the scorecards. By then, the prime lights out was long gone, but his toughness, his skills, and his defiance never left. Even as the years piled up, James Toney carried himself like a fighter who could never be broken. By 2011, James Toney returned to cruiserweight, weighing in at 199 pounds for the first time since 2003. He traveled to Russia to face Denis Lebedev for the interim WBA world title. But it wasn't his night. A knee injury in the second round left him flat-footed, unable to compete, and he lost every round on the scorecards. Days later, doctors confirmed he needed surgery. Still, lights out wasn't done. In 2012, he He stopped Bobby Gunn in 5 rounds, collecting a minor belt. A year later, he flew to Australia to fight Lucas Brown for the WBF heavyweight title. But Brown was too big, too fresh, and won a wide decision. That same year, Toney entered the prizefighter tournament in London. He stopped Matt Legg in the quarterfinals, but fell short in the semis against Jason Gavin. Time was catching up with him. The reflexes weren't the same, the weight was harder to carry, but the fighter's spirit never left. Finally, on May 13, 2017, at 48 years old, James Toney fought his last professional bout. He stopped Mike Shepard in the 6th round to win the WBF heavyweight title. After 29 years in the ring, 92 professional fights, and world championships in multiple divisions, James "Lights Out" Toney closed the book on his career. A man who rose from the streets of Ann Arbor, fought legends across 4 weight classes, and never once backed down. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't always disciplined. But he was real, raw, and unforgettable. And for boxing fans, that's why James Toney remains one of the most fascinating fighters of his era. Even long after his prime, James Toney's fighting spirit never faded. At the age of 55, on November 11, 2023, he stepped back into the ring in Kingston, Jamaica, to face Donovan "Razor" Ruddock, himself 59 years old. The fight was more spectacle than showcase. The first 2 rounds went the standard 3 minutes, but the rest were shortened to 2. Both men moved slow, showing every bit of their age. Still, they went the distance, and the bout was score draw. Critics called it sloppy. Fans called it unnecessary. But for Toney, it was another chance to do what he always did, fight. Toney's style, though, will always be remembered. His old-school crab defense, shoulder rolls, head movement, slick counters off the ropes, made him one of the smartest ring generals of his era. He wasn't just defensive, he was a pressure fighter in disguise, forcing opponents to fight his way. And with his granite chin, he was never stopped across nearly 3 decades of boxing, rarely even knocked down. That alone speaks volumes. But Toney's journey didn't end with boxing. In 2010, at 42 years old, he crossed over into mixed martial arts. Dana White signed him to the UFC, and for his debut he faced a legend, Randy Couture. It ended quickly. Couture took him down, smothered him, and submitted him in the first round. Just like that, Toney's UFC career was over. The fight was labeled a sideshow, even by Dana White himself. But Toney walked away with the bigger purse, $500,000, and the satisfaction that he dared to try. He flirted with another fight in MMA against Ken Shamrock in 2011, but it never happened. UFC 118 remained his only appearance in the cage. And so, James "Lights Out" Toney leaves behind one of the most unusual, colorful careers boxing has ever seen. A fighter who rose from Ann Arbor streets to win titles across 3 divisions. A man who fought everyone, from Michael Nunn to Roy Jones Jr., from Mike McCallum to Evander Holyfield. He had his flaws. Discipline wasn't always his strength. But his skill, his toughness, and his will to fight made him unforgettable. James Toney wasn't just a boxer. He was a throwback, a fighter from another era, trapped in modern times. And for fans who watched him, he will always be remembered as "Lights Out."